Moral Revolution community, welcome back to our podcast. I'm so glad you joined us today. We're going to dive into all things God's design for healthy sexuality. Let's talk about it.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Let's Talk About It podcast. Today we're talking about the thing that everyone experiences, but no one really wants to, breakups. My name's Abram.
And I'm Allie.
And we run the Date Well programs for men and women here at Moral Revolution.
Yes, it's a party.
Before we jump in, a few years ago, I bought a house and my dad came out and helped me remodel the house. And he was helping me build a closet into a room because in California, if you have a closet and a second entryway into the room, it can be considered a bedroom. So we're moving the office to a bedroom, and then it increases the value of the house. So he's helped me build a closet in there. And so we framed it up. Then we put drywall on and you tape it and you mud it. Then you put texture on it and everything. And going through that process, I watched him fix drywall, like how to put in drywall and fix it and everything. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, I mean, I could do that. I mean, he taught me how to do it as we were going, but I was like, oh. And I realized it actually gave me a lot of confidence to try to fix and do other things in the house, because I knew if I break it, if I screw this up, I actually know how to fix it. And at that point, it hit me that I was like, oh, this is dating. If I can do breakups well, if we can do breakups well, then it doesn't actually scare me from screwing things up because I know how to fix it. I know how to heal. I know how to move on. And I think I'm writing a book on dating, and I actually put the breakup chapter before the actual dating chapter because I'm like, let me show you how to heal and how to fix it, so that as we're going on, as you're going through the process, this fear of impending doom of the pain of breakups doesn't have to like dictate your dating life. It doesn't have to be a driver in your seat.
It demystifies it.
Yeah.
Anything that feels unknown can feel really scary.
Yeah.
It can leave you feeling frozen, or, whether that's frozen and I don't want to step into a relationship, or frozen in the relationship, feeling stuck. Like, I'm stuck in this. I can't get out. The only way out is pain, which can also be a really challenging feeling, right? So the fear of a breakup can be a huge roadblock. I know for myself, even when I, before I would even go out with a guy, I'd almost be like making deals with God. I'd be like, okay, God, just tell me, like, is he the one? Because then I won't have to break up with him. We won't have to break up. And I just remember coming to this realization.
I don't want to go through the process.
Yeah.
Just tell me so I don't waste my time or my heart.
But in that process, I realized, like,
I'm guessing he probably didn't honor that.
Honor that
deal.
Yeah.
He was like, no deal.
He wasn't really into disclosing, that for me. But because in that process, I realized, oh, you know what? God's actually okay with the breakup. Like, I'm over here like, God, I won't have to break up with him if you just tell me. And he's like, okay. I'm okay with the breakup.
Yeah.
He's not scared of it.
Yeah.
It's not evil.
Yeah.
But sometimes it can feel that way.
Yeah, it's not always evil. I saw a meme once, which it's funny how a funny meme can change the way that you date.
Yeah.
But it said, dating, you either marry the person or break up.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's accurate. I mean, you're going to break up with every single person you date unless you marry them.
Right. Which can feel like a lot of pressure if you don't have good tools in your tool belt for a breakup.
Yeah, it did feel like a lot of pressure because I'm like, oh no. And then I realized, oh, actually breakups are a lot more common than I think.
Yeah.
And it's not as evil as I think. I just need to figure out, I need to get some tools. I need to figure out how to do this differently.
Yeah, it's good. Well, we're going to save y'all today. If you have felt like us at all, feeling a little overwhelmed by the possibility of a breakup, feeling a little,
Welcome to humanity.
Yeah, a little scared of the potential of that. We're going to give you some tools today. We're going to talk about some logistics, some things you can sort of put in your tool belt for this area of relationships. But before we dive into the logistics of things, I want to address a few things, though. We sort of talked about it already, but it's that idea of fear, right? It's the idea of if we have a fear about a breakup, it's often going to become the roadblock in our relationship, right?
Yeah.
And so if we can go about learning how to demystify that, that's going to be a huge key for you. And so I would even ask yourself, wait, do I have a fear about this? Like, is this a doom and gloom kind of fear? Like, or do I actually feel okay with the fact that if this doesn't work out, like, I will be okay. Stepping into a relationship knowing, like, if this doesn't work out, I will be okay is a huge key to being able to step into a relationship in the first place.
Yeah.
You can sort of almost trust yourself a little bit better
Yeah.
if you can go into a relationship with that point of view.
It's not that you're bulletproof, because
No.
it's fine. It's going to hurt.
Painful, yeah.
Like if it matters, then it'll hurt. But
Yeah.
it's not going to end you.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you know how to process the pain well. You know how to release that.
Yeah.
All those sorts of good things. But another key
Which
point.
we'll get into.
Yeah. I'm giving you a little bit of a
Mhm.
tease. But another key point is to also become aware of your identity. Because if for some reason your past breakups has become some level of an identity statement about how valuable you think you are or what type of relationship you deserve next because of the breakup that you went through,
Mhm.
you're going to end up with some blurry lenses that you're viewing the world through, right? You're going to be making some decisions that are not rooted in truth, but are rooted in past pains and past experiences versus in the truth that you are worthy and that you are lovable and that you are chosen, the things that we know that God says about us versus, but what I did to that last person, I hurt them so bad. I don't think I deserve another amazing, awesome relationship. Or that person dumped me. Like, they were amazing. I don't think I'm worth anything better. If those are the sort of statements that we are holding in our heart, it does affect the way that we go about relationship, right? So making sure that you are rooted in an identity, and that's really important, because when we know our identity, then we can make decisions that are rooted in that. I think about Jesus, right? If Jesus didn't know who he was, like, where would we be today? It's very important that we know who we are, right?
Yeah.
The world depends on us to know who we are.
Yeah.
So those are just, jump in.
I was thinking, I was like, the identity thing. I was like, I think that's huge. I grew up in the church, so sometimes people say identity. I'm like, what's that mean?
Yeah.
But I'm translating it in my head as you're sharing. It's kind of like the extra labels you pick up at the end of the relationship, and typically I find those are in the reasoning, come from the reasoning portion. You know, like when you get to the end of the breakup and you're like, this is why it didn't work, or this is what happened, or this is why we broke up, and you're trying to like mentally trying to solve, why did we break up, why did it not work, why, and I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself, but I feel like that's the time when the devil kind of can sucker punch you and can throw in something attacking your identity to go, oh, you're just too loud. Well, maybe you just weren't playful enough. Well, maybe you're just not pretty enough.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you're too stuck up. Well, maybe you just didn't go far enough in this way. And it's almost a label that kind of attaches to go, oh, you're the prude. And so your next relationship, you walk in as thinking that you're the prude, or I'm just not fun enough, or I'm just not. And we'll talk about reasons to break up and how to kind of shed some of it off. But just kind of, I'm processing what you were just saying is just like, oh, that's the labels that we kind of get tagged on at the end of a relationship as to why it didn't work, are the things that we kind of need to brush off at the end to go, actually, that's not who I am.
Right.
It may be why, it could honestly be why the relationship didn't work out, because we were looking for different things, or because of maybe I was in a heavy season, or maybe I need to go prioritize more fun, or, you know, something like that. But that doesn't mean that's who I am. Right. That's just why could be why the experience happened the way it did.
Right. It's good. That is good.
Okay, so we kind of teased it. So, but like, why do you break up? Why are some like legit reasons?
Some very legit reasons. Well, we should just put out that obvious disclaimer from the get-go. Well, you know, kind of like we were saying earlier, like it's easy to have this mindset, or at least it felt easy to me. Maybe not everyone feels this way, that a breakup is somehow evil or an awful, and, you know, is some label about who you are if you break up with somebody. But I think sometimes we think that the other person has to have done something horribly wrong. We almost demonize the other person to feel okay with the fact that we've come to a place where we actually want out.
And this is if we're breaking up with the other person.
We're breaking up with the other person. Right. So, but I guess that very initial thing that we should just put out there is, well, obviously, if you're in a relationship with somebody and there's any sort of level of cheating or abuse, very obvious reasons to end a relationship. But sometimes it's just not as clear, right? Yeah. And so it's that point in the relationship where sometimes it's easy to go into the place of like blaming or accusing the other person of doing something. Yeah. When in fact, there could just be the fact that you've realized in dating this person, you've gotten to know them better, that your non-negotiables just don't line up, right?
Yeah.
Your standards, the things that you're like, I'm not willing to sway on this.
Yeah.
Like my faith, wanting children, my morals and values, we're just not aligning.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the future, and this is looking really hard to build a life together.
Yeah.
I love you, but I just don't know if I can commit in this way, right? And some of those things you don't know until you step into relationship.
Right. You don't know until you get to a level of your heart that you're like, oh, this is
Yeah.
I actually have a high value for this thing
Right.
that you don't carry.
Right.
And they're not necessarily a wrong thing. It's just
Right.
we're at the same spot here. We
Right.
don't care about the same things.
Exactly. Yeah. And so sometimes even getting to a place within yourself where you can realize that is to sometimes you come to a spot where you go, oh man, when I think about breaking up with this person, there's actually this level of relief that I feel.
Yeah.
Because I'm actually living in this somewhat of tension and turmoil within me where I don't feel fully settled. I don't feel fully excited about moving forward. Now, see, there's some natural ebbs and flows and things that you have to work out in relationship, of course. But when it comes to a point where you're like, we're not working this out, and I'm just living in this level of, I don't feel settled in this. And when I think about quitting, when I think about exiting out of this relationship, I actually feel some level of relief. That's a key sign to go, oh, I should pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Why do I feel a little bit relieved about breaking up? What in that actually feels exciting to me? That maybe sounds a little funny, but sometimes that's a key to look at and go, maybe this just isn't right.
Yeah.
Maybe this relationship, not that they've done anything wrong, not that, who they are is an awful person. I would set them up with my good friend, right? But it's just, they're just not for me. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, that's where I feel like it's that where you like inside, it's not right, or we're off, or we know something's inside, that I feel like it's easy to try to demonize the person because you're looking for, it's like in your gut or in your heart, it's not right, but your brain's like, but everything seems to make sense. And so you're trying to solve an answer to go, well, I really don't, they chew with their mouth open too much, or I don't like this. And you start to like try to find a reason wrong with them rather than just kind of admitting to yourself and the people around you to go, I just don't think there's something off. And
Which can be the hardest part.
I can't piece it yet.
Yeah.
But there's something off. Like, and then talking about demonizing people, I remember at one point I was dating this girl, and it was difficult to end it, or it was difficult when we ended it because I was like, she's great. I don't know why. It's just something's off. She's just not my person. She's not my girl. And I started down the path of kind of like trying to demonize her. I mean, not demonize, but just like, well, she's this or she's this. And God's like, hey, you don't have to demonize her. Like, you don't do that. And then I realized, I was like, oh, she's a really great girl.
Yeah.
And I did. I was like, hey, actually, and I texted my buddy Lance, and I was like, hey, I think you and this girl would get along really well. And he's like, why don't you date her? I was like, turns out I did. It just didn't work out. But I still think she's great. And I think you're great. And maybe you two would be a good fit. And being able to kind of just, I don't always need to cognitively understand why. Sometimes, like you were saying, you know inside, and you're like, oh, when I think about breaking up, it actually brings a sense of peace.
Right. Yeah, man, that made me think of something. I think too, we talk about this often in the Date Well course, but it's actually something that my father-in-law, Jason Valentin, says that the goal, if your
Who's
goal,
that?
Who is that? He often says your goal in dating should be to leave the other person better off than you found them.
Yeah.
Or at least he made that his goal in dating. And I think if your goal remains the same throughout the whole dating process, then in breaking up with somebody, there's a way that you can leave them better off than you found them, even in the breaking up process, right? Where you can go, oh, like you said, you call up your friend Lance, hey Lance, you want to go out on a date? Yep. Like there's a level of, there's no shame in about how this relationship went down. I can, with all my cards on the table, know that we went about this well. Yeah. And I cared for this person well. And I was really honest with them. And we've ended this relationship in an honorable way. Yeah. And I feel good about it. I'm able to let this person go and know that I've left them off better than I found them. Right. And that might look like a lot of different things.
And just for some reason, this popped in my head. I was like, you can be honorable even if they aren't.
Yeah.
Like the goal could be that you both went into it thinking we'll leave each other better off, but they could have some hurts, some wounds, or you just get to a certain level. I have a friend who he dated for 6-8 months and hit a spot where they're like, oh, here's some stuff that I didn't know was inside of you. And that's a non-negotiable for me. Like that's something that you need to work through. And one of them handled the breakup very well, and one of them did not, and said some nice stuff, some did not. But they walked away going, he's like, oh, okay, I'm still going to honor you and speak positively about you to everybody, to your close friends. You can kind of go, dude, this really sucks. What the, like, you work through it, but you could still be honorable even if they aren't.
Right. That's really good. Okay. Another, go for it.
There's something we talked about. You just kind of know inside.
Yeah.
If it's okay. What if you are really good at following, my wife calls it fake peace, or like you're good at following comfort and it's not necessarily the comfort of the Holy Spirit. It's not peace. It's your,
you're just comfortable.
Yeah.
But like, are you kind of saying like, but deep down that it's not right?
Well, it's like when you, maybe somebody outside your situation would challenge you because you keep hitting the same,
ooh, it's good.
Same.
Why you need community.
Same cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really good. I was actually just thinking about the need for community kind of kind of in the opposite direction first, but I'm going to reel it back around this way. We were talking about how you're that sort of, what were we saying? You're talking about, your friend and how you're like, okay, what about, do you want to date this other person? I remember, and you were like, there was nothing wrong with her. I remember in this season, this guy was pursuing me, and same, there was nothing wrong with him. And everybody around me was telling me he's such a great guy and sort of cheering us on. But I knew, I was like, I have this decision to make. I could either please everybody around me, all the people I love and trust are telling me this is a good idea, or I could honor my heart and listen to my gut and actually step out of this relationship because it's just not right. And this person's amazing, but actually sticking in this isn't honoring him either. Yeah. Right. So it's like, and
in that moment, your whole community doesn't have to wake up next to him every day.
Oh my gosh.
Your heart does.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, it's the tension of having community, right? Because you're like, I love and trust these people, but I also am listening to my own heart. But then there comes the flip side of that, right? Where you're like, I desperately need community, because there's oftentimes where we have blind spots in our life, or we step into a relationship and we're like, we get to the spot in the relationship and we are like, oh my goodness, here we are again. This person, I just can't commit. I just can't. I look at the future and I'm like, I can't do it. And they're like, okay, well, I've been your friend for the last 5 years and I've seen you date 4 guys, and you get to the spot every single time. And being able to call something out in somebody, or call something out that you see in somebody that they can't see because they're in the middle of it, is so important. And it is why we need community to speak into our relationships, because it might be that you don't actually need to break up with this person, that you have some work you need to do on the inside, and that you need your community to come around you and sort of call it out.
Yeah.
Just be truth.
Yeah. They're your BS meter.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're like, no,
it's not going to fly by me.
Yeah.
Not going to work. Yeah.
I just don't feel connected. That's funny, because at the 3-month mark with your last 3 boyfriends, you just didn't feel connected.
Exactly.
What's going on?
Exactly. And I remember this. Go for it.
I was just saying, I've told friends before, I was like, hey, look, if you need to break up, you need to break up. Cool. But first, before you do that, I think you need to address this thing inside of you, because it's stopping you from actually making a clear decision.
Right. It's really good. We need people around us, guys. I don't know where I'd be without them. It's really good. I remember this moment in sort of going back to that ebbs and flows of relationship. Like, I remember this moment when Elijah, my now husband, and I were dating, and I don't know, we had been dating for a couple months, and he was my first sort of serious boyfriend. And there came this point in the relationship where I could feel a level of disconnection. Like I could feel like, we're just not very connected. And I was nervous to bring up the conversation. I felt a little nervous to like even be around him, because I was like, oh no, I think what lies on the other side of this is heartbreak. Like it feels like we're just slowly drifting apart from each other. And I remember eventually somehow it came up in conversation, and he looked at me and he was like, wait, Allie, this is very normal in relationships. There's normal ebbs and flows to a relationship. Sometimes we think once that shiny's gone, it's time to get out. When the reality is sometimes there's just natural ebbs and flows to a relationship where you're sort of sorting things out. You're sort of trying to figure things out. You're gathering new information that sometimes you don't just process in a moment and agree to in a moment, but takes time to really sort out and come to a place where you're like, oh, okay, I can commit. I can keep moving forward in this relationship. And that sometimes creates a little bit of instability that we might feel in a relationship that's actually normal. And I would even argue healthy. But if the fear of, oh no, a little disconnection means breakup, which causes you to run, that's like, that will lead to doom and gloom in the relationship, right? Versus leaning in and pressing through and finding connection. So not all the ebbs and flows are necessarily, just because the shiny is gone doesn't mean that it's necessarily time to break up. It might mean, oh, we have some things we need to confront and work through, and we need to bring people into this process.
Yeah. I love that because, I mean, I've been married just across the 5-year mark now.
Wow. I feel like that means you're freshly not newlyweds anymore.
Yeah, it's
That's
like
what
we're at that stage.
Yeah, 5 years.
But doing the amount of research and just marriages and talking to people is starting to piece together is like there is ebbs and flows. And sometimes there are certain situations in life that naturally just pull you together.
Yeah.
And there's sometimes you just kind of run parallel. And there's sometimes that it almost drifts you apart. But the decision that you're constantly making is, can I and will I intentionally choose to re-engage and intentionally swim towards each other?
That's good.
Swim towards connection. And even in dating, you're kind of going through that process to go, oh, we're starting to drift apart. Like in the beginning, everything's like, it's shiny, it's fun.
Yeah.
There's like chemically, I forget all the chemicals now, but like the honeymoon period.
Endorphins and oxytocin. Yeah.
Everything hits the honeymoon period there where everything, I think norepinephrine.
Oh, okay.
Is the one I can't pronounce, but it's like one that it gives you that, like, it's the honeymoon feeling. It's the new, the fun, and that fades, and you move from attraction into like long-term love. There's like 3 or 4 different types of things, but in those stages you hit in your relationship. It's not that I'm still very attracted to my wife. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But in those things, it doesn't come as natural anymore. It doesn't feel like it used to feel. And then you get to choose right now. I was like, oh, do I still want to swim towards the other person? Do I still want to engage that other person? And sometimes in dating, when you get to this same cycle, you get to the end of the honeymoon phase with all your dating relationships and go, I just don't feel it. And you're like, okay, do you like this person enough that you'd like to keep swimming towards them for this next season? And if you keep saying yes and yes, you're like, oh, I want to do this for the rest of my life. Or if you go, no, I'm not. I'm at the spot where I'm ready to break up. It's just some things to consider, kind of like you were saying. There are natural ebbs and flows, even chemically, and hormonally. You had mentioned something about hormonally earlier.
Did I?
Before we started recording.
Oh, okay. I don't remember.
Okay.
Abram, take it away.
Was it just about your hormonal cycles? I'm guessing because both men and women have hormonal cycles. We talk about women's a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm making stuff up. I thought you had said this where there's certain times of the months that you just feel super connected, and sometimes you feel very needy, or sometimes you feel more disconnected, and it's just how your hormones are in a cycle. But if you make decisions, track your cycle, both men and women, so that when you kind of know, hey, this is a more sensitive time of the month I'm in right now, or I feel much more confident right now. Like you're making decisions based upon what you want, not what your current hormonal levels are.
Yeah. Versus just your feelings.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. I mean, there's probably a long list of other reasons you might break up, and there's so many different dynamics. So it's hard to put it's not so black and white as we can, it's not always so black and white. Sometimes there's some gray areas, and, in each relationship, there's different reasonings and different dynamics and different histories and stories. But these are just a few sort of takeaways you can sort of sit with and process. But let's jump into sort of breaking up. How do we actually do this well? Let's get to the meat of this.
Text messages are the best.
Oh yeah. It sounds
send them
like
a text,
it would
block
be
their number
really
so they
good.
can't respond. It's perfect.
Oh man, good for the heart.
Oh goodness.
That's called closure. Immediate
Oh,
closure.
my goodness. No.
Just kidding.
I actually I love helping people through this process because it feels so daunting. I think a lot of times the thing I coach people through the most is be clear and be concise. Don't drag it on. Like, if you're gonna, I relate it to hunting. So if you don't like hunting, my bad. But if you're going to kill a deer, you shoot it right behind the front leg. That's where the heart is. So it's an instant kill. You don't shoot him in the foot. You don't shoot him in the head. You don't shoot him in, you don't want to drag it on. You don't have to be mean. You don't have to be mean. But the idea is, hey, if I can actually end this clearly, then they can have closure and they can move on. Sometimes we drag it on, or I've been so guilty of this, is we use phrases at the end of the phrase of like, right now.
Yep.
I just don't see us moving together right now. I don't see us together right now.
And if it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
Like maybe in the future. And what we're doing for us is we're making it more comfortable for us because we're softening it. For them, what we're doing is giving them false hope so they don't actually have closure to move on.
So hard. I have experienced that myself. I mean, and it can, if that door of hope is left open, I mean, and you don't go about shutting it, that can keep you from stepping into relationships. That can keep you in that waiting space for not just a little bit, for a long time.
I've been in there for over a year.
Oh yeah, I've been in there for years.
Because you're just hanging, going, well, maybe I'm waiting for God to.
If it's meant to be, it's meant to be, right?
And the reality is like, hey, if you can settle in your heart that this needs to end. Yeah. God can resurrect anything. Right. But if it's time to close it, you need to close it. And you need to make sure you can be kind about it. You don't have to, maybe killing the deer wasn't a bad way to start it. But just to say, hey, I like to just practical language is, don't plan a big date. I had one friend who, his girlfriend was going to break up came over to the house. He was preparing like this big picnic for them. Strawberries, cheese, chocolate, was doing this great thing. She sat there and waited with him while he prepared it for 30 minutes to get there, drive out to the place, parked, set up the picnic, and then she broke up with him right away. And he's like, oh no. Also, I didn't have a car, so I had to get back in her car and she'd drive me home at the time. And I was like, oh. Oh, that's And I was like, painful. So don't plan it like get coffee, go on a walk is nice because especially for guys, we don't always sit and talk well, but if we're moving, we can think and say it easier. So sometimes going on a walk or do something to say, hey, I just start with, hey, I've really loved getting to know you. I mean, I've really appreciate getting to know you. Here's the things I really like about you. I honestly, if I'm honest with myself, I don't see this moving forward. I don't see this going beyond friendship. I don't see us moving towards marriage. And depending upon how long you guys have been dating, I think it depends on how much information you need to give them. Yeah. You've been dating for a year and a half. Like you've been dating for 2 weeks. I don't see this evolving more. Yeah. Cool. If you've been dating for 2 years or 3 years, feel free to, hey, that's going to take some more time to kind of unpack and say, hey, I've really loved this. These are the things that I just see in our lives that we're going in different directions in. Like the longer we get into it, the life that you want to build is beautiful. It's just not the life that I want to build. Like we're going in different directions, and it's painful for me to say, but I have to admit that to ourselves. Yeah. Because ultimately you're not there to be comfortable for each other or to be nice. I mean, you want to be nice, don't get me wrong, but you want to have an incredible marriage and you want the other person to have an incredible marriage. Right. And if you're not able to give closure in how you talk, you're leading them in the wrong way. Right. I'll also say, sorry, one other thing, and then jump in. Please do this well. Please do this well, because I coach men through. I say, whenever you break up with a woman, you're showing her this is what a man of God acts like when he has nothing to gain from you. He's not trying to impress you. He's not trying to win you. He's not trying to woo you. He's trying to honor you and to tell you, hey, this is what's going on. And he's communicating well to you when he has nothing to gain from you. That's really good. So going into it with that perspective allows you to be kind and gentle. You don't need you don't need to bash them. Well, I don't know this. If they did break trust with you and say, hey, when this happened, it broke a lot of trust with me, and I'm having trouble getting over it. Like I can't keep moving forward. My heart can't keep doing that. So you can be honest with some events that may have happened, but you don't need to be like, I think you're fat and I don't like you. And you're like, whoa, okay.
Right. Right. Like obviously speaking with honor and respect and love for the other person and kindness, but also the other person really, I mean, I love the point that you make about the time frame, right? Like you're not going to share all your innermost thoughts with somebody you've gone on a few dates with.
Yeah.
But if you've been in a long-term relationship with somebody, they really deserve for you to be honest with them.
Yeah.
It actually does both of you a disservice if you aren't honest with them.
Yeah.
And it leaves a lot of questions that go unanswered that is often a lot harder to process the breakup when you don't have the answers to the questions that you have on the inside, right? Because as you leave that moment of breakup, you both are going to go about a process of healing or just a process of processing the relationship and the breakup and etc. And you're going to ask yourself some questions and you're beginning to wonder, like, what could I have done different? Or should I have done something different? Or was it me? Did I do something? Did they do something? Right? You're going to go about just some natural questions that you're going to ask yourself. And if you're able to answer some of those for the other person, if you're able to just be honest with them in a way that's loving and respectful, you actually do the both of you a great service by doing that. Yeah.
I like that.
That's good.
One thing I like to add on to the end of a breakup. Well, I'll say two things.
Yeah.
The end of the statement is like, share, then stop and give them space. Yeah. They may have something to say right away. They may want to come back a week later, or like, a few days later, and they may not expect it, and they're reeling, and they go, hey, just giving them just space to respond. Yeah. They don't say anything right then, and we've been dating for a while. I could say like, hey, this may be like a lot. Let me know if you want to talk again in a few days.
Right.
I don't think you need to have 6 follow-up conversations because that's just you're continuing the relationship.
Yeah.
But giving them, like, depending upon how long you've been together, giving them some time to be able to process and them to be able to let out,
right,
hey, this really hurt. Like you are not in charge of their pain level or not. Like you can't predict and you can't control how they're going to experience life.
Yeah.
Like you're not in charge of their heart. You can be kind and gentle with your words, but that's on them to do.
Yeah.
And so giving them a space to respond helps that healing process. And then I also just like to set up boundaries. Like sometimes it's just to go, hey, here's what you can kind of expect from me, or like, and then let me know what you need. So some of that, it's like, sometimes it's like, hey, I'd still like to be friends, but I want to need some space. I want to need a couple weeks just to kind of reimagine our lives apart from each other. Because the reality is, I was listening to a neuroscientist on breakups because I'm that kind of nerd, but he was saying it's like a divorce or a grief or a loss is you're not just breaking up with the person, but you're also breaking up with the future that you had envisioned for your life.
Yes.
And so you need to go through the process now of separating and mourning and grieving the future that's not going to happen. You're not going to have those videos. You're not going to watch those movies together. You're not going to go on these trips. You're not going to have these holidays. Like, that's painful. You need to walk through that. And you also need to start kind of letting that die and then reimagining what the new life looks like. And he said it's very dangerous with social media because you don't let that person die.
That's so interesting.
But because you keep them right here. And so I've literally had to say, hey, I need to unfollow you on social media. Yeah. I'm not trying to be rude or mean. Just for my heart, I just need some space to let this breathe and let us begin to go our own ways.
Right.
And like sometimes we're in similar friend groups, and I would just say, like, hey, I know we're in similar friend groups. I'm not trying to be mean, but for the next little bit, I'm not going to invite you to group hangouts. Like if I'm initiating something, I'm not going to like invite you to this. I still like you a lot. I just need some space, and I want to protect both of us. And then saying, and if we're at the same group hangout, the same space, I'll come. I'll say hi. I'll say, hey, how are you doing? And then I'm going to keep moving on. And I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to be mean. I want to protect some space in between us so that both of us can move on.
Right. I've had some people ask too, and feel free to chime into this, Abram, but I've had some people ask, okay, well, what do you do in that situation where you're sort of preparing the person that you're breaking up with for some of the boundaries of what they can expect in social situations?
Yeah.
But if you've been in the same friend group, almost preparing your friend group for what to expect.
Oh, that's
because it's so real. When if you've been in a tight knit friend group where everyone's experienced you guys together and invites you to things together, suddenly you're having to prepare a friend group for a different relationship with you, right? Yeah. And so I always say give it time, one, but also have conversations with your friends and be honest with your heart about what it is, what actually feels good. What do you actually need? one, do you want to be invited to things where this other person's also being invited to?
Yeah.
Maybe it's not initially. Maybe you need to tell them, hey, I need a couple weeks, I need a couple months.
Yeah.
But eventually I'll be there.
Yeah.
Or even just preparing them like, yeah, totally. I'm so in. I so want to be there. But yeah, we've broken up. Like, I'm not going to be engaging in deep conversations as a group like we used to,
Yeah.
right? I just need to protect my heart and their
Yeah.
heart. So I think it's important to have conversation with your community if that's been a dynamic where you've been involved in a tight friend group or tight community together, of just like what to expect. It's very mature too.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I don't need you all trying to decide this behind our backs. Like, let's just bring this to the surface and let's just have a conversation about it versus trying to figure it all out.
And maybe it's because I'm the man, or maybe it's because I was the one doing the breaking up at times, but I would even offer that, like at the end of the breakup, to say, hey, now we've got this friend group over here, or I've worked with people like that. We were friends with the people we worked with and into the dynamics, and said, hey, I know this is kind of painful and it's probably going to be awkward. I'd like to share with them, just to take that burden off of you almost.
Oh, yeah,
so that
nice.
you don't have to walk in and go, hey, how's things going with Abram? And here they're like, we broke up. They're like, what happened? I can like gently kind of go ahead and just let everyone know. I was like, hey, we tried. It didn't work out. We're going to need some time together. We're still friends, or like, we just need some space. And I can gently, in the same form of gentle way that I could break up with, I could kind of talk through our friend group. And then I'm like, hey, feel free to ask her experience of it. And I just wanted to let you know. And I wanted to I wanted to be the one to have the hard conversation, so she didn't have to.
That's really good, Abram. I really like that. I also really liked what you said about giving them some space and time to think about what they need and what boundaries they need and what they want to say in response, because it can be such a shock, right? If you're not expecting to be broken up with that day, you haven't prepared your thoughts like the other person has. So being able to come loop back around where you've kind of been able to process some things and let it out is really helpful.
Yeah.
So I like that. Man, I feel like we could go on and on.
I know, right? That was like, there's so many things. We talked about how to break up, but I kind of want to take a step back maybe before that for a second. I think you need to solidify in your mind what's happening.
Yes. Okay. I know where you're going. And this is, I give friends the same advice.
Okay.
Like, for instance, I have a friend that's going through a breakup. And when I was chatting with her, I said, oh, before you go to talk to this person, you need to know what you want your goal to be. Because when you go to have this conversation, you care about this person. You don't want to see them hurting. You don't want to see them in pain. So you need to remember, when I leave this conversation, this is my desire. My desire, my goal is that I will have clearly communicated that we are breaking up, and not getting caught in a conversation. Now, if you are needing to have a conversation, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
But getting caught in a conversation where now you're feeling confused about what you feel anymore, because now you're like, wait, I came to this and I felt so certain and I felt so committed. And now I'm feeling so confused about what I want, because I'm really now so concerned about how you're feeling. And if you can you handle this? And the truth is, you're not responsible for their pain.
Yeah.
You're not responsible for their healing journey. And that's really hard when you're breaking up with somebody, because it's a very big release, right? You're like, something that you've held closely to your heart is now suddenly something that you're having to release fully. And that's really challenging. That takes a lot of courage to go, okay, I'm going to really let you go on all levels. On picking up my phone and calling you just because I want to talk with somebody, because it's companionship, and I'm letting go of you in the sense of, I'm not going to be the one to take care of you when you're hurting and you're in pain. I'm releasing you, and I believe that God is going to take care of you.
And even as Christians, I'm not praying for you anymore.
Yeah.
I know that sounds intense, but it's literally going, because your prayer life with God is the intimate part of your heart.
Yeah, it's hard.
And sometimes it's going, okay, I'm actually trusting God to take care of you, so that I'm not responsible for praying for your well-being.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, I'm not saying you shouldn't pray for them, but sometimes it's the way we hold on to the relationship is through praying for them. When in reality it's going, no, you need to let them go. You need to release them.
That's good. Man.
Can you walk me through, when you're walking through there and you have your goal, what breaking up versus a breakup, or taking a break?
A break versus a breakup.
Yeah. Walk me through. How do you
Right.
decide that goal?
I'd say
And is a break an actual?
I would say a break is legitimate. I think sometimes we think, okay, that's just your easy way out of actually breaking up with somebody. But I've witnessed great relationships that have taken a break because they need space and time to figure out some hard questions that they're wrestling, or maybe something has gone on in the relationship that they're not sure how they feel about. An example is coming to mind in the sense of a girl was just really uncertain about her boyfriend's past, right? Some things he had walked through, some things he was still presently dealing with that she just didn't know about. Not necessarily deal breakers if he was willing to work through them, but she went, I have to know that I'm not the reason that you're working through these things, because I will forever feel the pressure to make sure you're okay and make sure that you're actually doing the things you need to do to live in freedom, versus watching you go on that journey fully on your own, getting the help that you need, not me getting you the help that you need. So that I can trust that our relationship is actually built on something that's solid and not me carrying the weight and the responsibility of the health of our relationship. And so I've seen couples take breaks in those situations where they go, hey, I love you. I'm committed to you. I want to see you work through these things. I can't be responsible for helping you because of these reasons. And I'm here. I want to, let's set a time on the calendar. Like how much time do we need to break? I need a month. I need 2 months. Setting a time frame for your break is really helpful to go, hey, I would love to check back in a month from now and just see how things are going. Good. Sort of have a reconvene conversation.
I think you have to have, I think that's, I loved everything you said, but the exclamation point on the end for me is checking back in. When you check back in, what's the goal of that? Like, hey, here's the measurables. Here's the things we wanted to revisit. And during our time off, we did and worked through these things. And now that we revisit, let's see where we are. You're not signing back up to date them forever. No. You're not breaking up forever. You're checking in to see where we at. Otherwise, you're ghosting the person. You're taking the easy way out and to say, we're going on a break. And then you just never talk to them again and hide.
No.
So like we want to revisit and go, okay, wait, where are we at in the situation? I know we've talked a lot about, we've kind of hit some of these things, but what's that healing process look like?
A good healing process. How do we recover? Right. Well, you talked a little bit about making sure you have boundaries. I think that's a really big key to actually recovering well, is actually coming to a place where you have closure, where that wound doesn't keep just getting reopened, because every time you see them, all these memories come flushing back and they're right in front of your face, and there's no time to actually heal and to sort of distance yourself from this person to actually find closure and to discover who you are not with them in this season of life. Kind of like you're saying, like, okay, what does this season of life look like? What is vision?
You're getting new vision for your life.
New vision for my life. And sometimes that takes time, but I would say first and foremost on your healing process is allowing yourself to feel. And I know that sounds so simple, but I feel like it's so huge on our healing journey, is just being so honest about whatever emotions are coming up on the inside and processing them. And I would say we all process differently, but having a plan for how you're going to process your pain is huge. For some people, that might be, having people that they verbally process with, where they just can let out the emotions that they're feeling, where they feel safe to just be seen and known with where they're at. For other people, and it might be a combination of these things, but for other people, that might be, your journal. I know for me, my journal, I'm like, thank God for my journal, right? It's like that space where the stuff that's almost can get stuck inside finally meets something on the external. That internal world meets the external world on a very safe page where it's just you and God. And I say write as if no one is ever going to see that piece of paper, right? Like, get out whatever is going on the inside. It really is such a helpful tool to processing some of our internal world and emotions. I would also say it's easy to become overwhelmed by the level of pain that we're feeling, where it affects everything that we're doing, right? And I know some people are maybe more inclined to this than others, where it's like they go into a real somber season, right? Where it's like they just sleep all day and they're not eating. And I'm like, there's a level of that's really normal in grief.
Yeah.
And then also I'd say, but there's also it also gets really exhausting if that's the only way that you're grieving, right?
Yeah.
Versus allowing for yourself to just do some things that you would normally do, like things that bring you life and joy. Like maybe go see that movie with friends, even if you're feeling a little sad. Like those are things that you enjoy doing. I would say don't keep yourself in the cave for too long.
Yeah.
Go out and do the things that bring you life so that you have energy to go back and process again.
Yeah.
And not get stuck in that heaviness.
Right. I think that's so good. I was listening to a guy named David Kessler who owns grief.com, if that tells you what he's about. He's like
he loves a good cry.
Yeah. And he helps people deal with grief and death. And he said he studied buffaloes.
Interesting.
And buffaloes, I think, are the only animal, but at least the main animal, that when the storm comes, they run towards the storm.
What?
Right? I'm like, this is awesome. As a man, I'm like, this is awesome. And then I was like, oh, we're talking about grief.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I'm the guy who likes to run away and ignore it. I'm like, I'm throw myself into work. I'm going to throw myself into purpose. I'm going to throw myself into ministry and like just ignore it. I know other people, like you medicate other ways, maybe it's through alcohol, maybe it's through hookups.
Yeah.
Like maybe you're just like, I'm trying not to feel is essentially what you're doing. But buffaloes actually run into the storm because they know if the storm's coming this way, when they head into the storm, it's actually they'll experience the storm the least amount of time.
Wow.
Where often we try to run like parallel to it, or we try to run just in front of it, and it just slowly creeps up and overtakes us. And grief and pain is something that you have to face. You have to, because you're like, no, I don't. I'll stuff it down. I've been fine. I haven't done it for 5 years. I'm like, whoo, that's about to blow.
Right.
It's something going on inside that needs a relief valve, whether it's through your journal or whether it's through some people, it's called scream therapy, where you just kind of go out into nature or in your car and just scream.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're not crazy, but it's a cathartic experience.
I was gonna say, like, sounds kind of therapeutic, honestly.
Yeah, it's letting this outside, and I don't always have words because sometimes it just hurts.
Yeah, it's like why we cry, right?
Yeah.
It's like a loss for words.
This is a secret into my world, so I'm telling the world about it. But we talk about sex, so why not? Sometimes like I get like creative block, I get like tear block, if that makes sense. Like I can't cry because I'm just kind of numb to it.
Yeah.
I watch YouTube videos of like soldiers coming home from war.
Oh my gosh, gets me every time.
Or people and their dogs at airports, like being reunited. I'm gonna tear up think about it.
Oh my gosh.
But that's the thing that like triggers me to be able to like to
engage
access that, to go, okay, now that I'm here, I need to run at the storm, or I need at least to be able to sit and let the storm overtake me and be able to cry it out, like to have the ugly cry in the pillow, to be able to just scream or to yell or to be able to punch the couch or the bed, or something soft that, not somebody, but like to be able to just a punching bag, something just to let out what's inside of me and to go, okay, this is hurt.
Yeah. And I would say too, a good sign that there's been some healing is when those memories, when they rise to the surface, they just don't hurt as bad anymore. When you're able to think about that good time that you had and it just doesn't feel as painful, it's probably a sign that there's been some healing that's taken place. If you've allowed yourself, not if you've gone numb, but if you've allowed yourself to feel the pain of it and coming out the other side and going, oh, that wound feels like it's healed over. Right.
And that's what people, as we kind of wrap up here, that's what people ask a lot is like, how do I know when I'm ready to date? Like, how long does it take? And I'm like, however long you take.
6 weeks precisely.
Yeah. Exactly. 6 weeks, one day you did it wrong. No, it depends on the date. It depends on your personality. It depends on how mentally, emotionally, spiritually invested you were. It depends on what plans. It depends what life experiences you had in that time period. Did you hit holidays? Did you hit big family events and grief things or things that bonded you together? Like, all of those things will play in differently. Yeah. So go, like, that was a great thing saying is going like, does the memory sting as bad? Like, and then are you able to move forward thinking of what you want, not what you're avoiding, whether it's the pain or whether it's, I don't want a girl like that, or I don't want to date a guy like this, or I don't want to go through this experience. We go, oh, actually I have hope and vision for my future.
Yeah.
And then I tell people, like, similar to if you've ever broke a bone or like sprained your ankle or something, it's like going back into it, you have to go slow. You can't just run right away after a broken bone. You kind of like learn to go, I think I can put some weight on it. Okay, I can put some weight on it. Can I stand on it? Okay, I can do this now.
Yeah.
I want to try some steps. Okay, I want to walk a little. Oh, nope, that's too soon.
Yeah.
And in dating, when you get back in there, especially after a longer relationship, is being able to sit and go, or talk to the next person. Like if you're only going, hey, I just got a long relationship. I'm looking to go slow. And sometimes you may be 3 or 4 dates in and go, hey, actually, I need to slow down. Or, oh, man, I'm so sorry. I realize I'm not as ready as I thought I was.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to just step back, and sometimes you go, are you okay if we just pause kind of on this level and just get to know each other a bit better before we move on? Because I need to put some weight on it and get some confidence in my weight, like being weight on it right now.
Really good, Abram. Great keys. We talked about it a lot.
Yeah, this is a big
in less
session.
than an hour. It's impressive.
Yeah. How about we end up, and do you want to pray for everyone who's kind of going through heartbreak?
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, Jesus, we love you. We're so thankful for you, God. We are so thankful that you are our comfort, that you gave us the Holy Spirit, God, that he rests inside of us and he's comfort to us, God. I pray that anyone listening to this, that is, whether they have been thinking about breaking up or they're in the midst of a breakup, God, I pray that you would come in close and that they would feel your presence, that they would even just begin to feel you're sort of guiding them in the process of breaking up and through the healing journey, God. I pray that it would be filled with peace and ease and just your love, God, that they would feel your nearness, just your Father's heart towards them as you cheer them on. God, I pray you would even begin to speak to them the truths about what you believe about them, that those would be things that they grab a hold of in their heart in this season, that they cling to as they're walking through something that might be so painful. So we love you, God. We're so thankful for you. Jesus.
Thank you guys for listening. If you want to learn more and check out all of our awesome content, be sure to head to our website at moralrevolution.com and our socials, Instagram, Facebook, all of them. But before you leave, don't forget to like, review, subscribe, all of the things. We want you guys to come back and join us. We enjoyed having you. See you next time.